a long time ago in a faraway land. So begins many classic stories that we love and remember. But why do we love stories? What attracts us to faraway lands, fantastic occurrences, evil tyrants, damsels in distress, heroic princes, and of course, happily ever afters? To understand why we love stories, we must first look at what stories have in common. Nearly every story has three parts. Act 1, losing perfection. Act 2, the hero's rescue. And Act 3, happiness restored. The similarities in each of these parts point to an original story, which inspired all others. So let's take a look at each part separately, starting, of course, with Act 1, losing perfection. A powerful prince is asked for shelter. Because the lady asking appears to be an old beggar, he arrogantly refuses. At this, the lady reveals that she is not a beggar, but a powerful enchantress. For his wickedness, the prince is cursed and transforms into a hideous beast, doomed to live in misery. So begins the classic fairy tale, Beauty and the Beast. And so begins many stories. A beautiful, perfect world lost, often because of a curse, usually a curse brought on by wickedness or disobedience. In another fairy tale, Princess Aurora is cursed to fall into an enchanted slumber from touching a spinning wheel. And when she does, her only hope is if her true love comes to rescue her. Or maybe the perfect world isn't lost because of a curse. Maybe the problem's caused by a tyrant. Take the classic folk tales of Robin Hood, where Prince John reigns as a tyrannical imposter king, while the true king is off fighting in a war. Or even in films, even films like Star Wars, where Darth Vader mercilessly serves the tyrannical emperor, despite having once been a good man. A curse, a fall, a tyrant, regardless, a perfect world is lost. Bleak hopelessness remains. The story could almost seem doomed to tragedy from the start. But then, of course, comes Act 2, the hero's rescue. Just when the beast thinks his life cannot become any more hopeless, a beautiful girl, Belle, stumbles into his castle. She compassionately makes the choice to love the seemingly unlovable beast. Prince Philip rushes in, fighting every enemy between him and his enchanted bride. Out of love for the sleeping princess, he will take any risk and make any sacrifice necessary to save her. While these two heroes seek to break curses, others have different goals. In The Lord of the Rings by J.R.R. Tolkien, we meet the true king of Middle-earth, Aragorn, disguised as Strider, an ordinary ranger. Aragorn embarks on a quest not to break a curse, but to reclaim his throne and overthrow the evil tyrant Sauron. In Star Wars, Luke, the boy who proves to be Vader's son, emerges as hero. He leads others to fight against the tyranny of Vader and the Emperor. But he has an additional goal, one which all his friends mock and think impossible. He hopes against all logic to do the impossible, to redeem his father. All of these heroes have battles to fight through and pain to endure, but heroes prevail, and Act 2 gives way to Act 3, where the hero succeeds and happiness is restored. Belle's love for the beast breaks the curse, and he is restored to a human once more. Prince Philip wins his way into the castle and wakens his bride. Aragorn succeeds in his quest, overthrows Sauron, and claims his throne, true king of Middle-earth. And Luke successfully redeems his father, and Vader sacrifices himself in order to save his son and stop the Emperor's tyranny. In every story, with the hero's success, peace and happiness are indeed restored. Belle marries the beast, now prince. Prince Philip marries Princess Aurora. The true king takes his throne. Peace is restored to a galaxy. All of these stories are indeed remarkably similar. The same three parts, the same ideas, despite the storytellers coming from a variety of cultures and worldviews. So why are they similar? Secular film writer Christopher Vogler wrote about this in his book, The Writer's Journey. He called it the hero's journey, and noted it's difficult to avoid the sensation that the hero's journey exists as an eternal reality, a divine model. In other words, he's admitting that stories have so many similarities, it seems impossible to have just been a coincidence. An eternal reality. Interesting choice of words, because Ecclesiastes 3:11 says, God has also put eternity in the hearts of men. I believe that Christopher Vogler, despite not believing in God, was unknowingly right. We do indeed love stories because they are based on a divine model, the story of Christ, an eternal reality which God put in our hearts. Let's rewind to Act 1, and I'll show you. The true story, Act 1. In Genesis, God creates a beautiful, perfect world and puts two people in it, Adam and Eve. He gives them only a single rule, not to eat from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. In other words, not to try to become God themselves. But tempted by Satan, they disobey, bringing the curse of sin and death into the world. As Isaiah 25:24 says, a curse consumes the world. Its people must bear their guilt. So there's our curse. What about a tyrant? Well, 1 John 5:19 tells us that the whole world is under the control of the evil one, Satan. But he's no more the true king than Prince John in the Tales of Robin Hood. He's just an imposter despite all his power. Act 2. All of these heroes were remarkably similar. They were loving, sacrificing, humble, and sought to redeem those who had fallen. And such a hero was the true hero, Jesus. To rescue his bride, God's son becomes a man. Like Aragorn, the true king of Middle-earth, going about as a humble ranger, so the glorious king becomes a humble peasant. He had no form or majesty that we should look at him, and no beauty that we should desire him. Isaiah 53:9. Jesus lives a perfect life. Like Belle loving the seemingly unlovable beast, so Christ chooses to love us, the rebellious people who had turned our backs on him, who didn't deserve his love. Like Luke seeking to redeem his father, so Christ sought to redeem us from the curse of sin and death. And of course, as Philip was willing to make whatever sacrifice it took to free the one he loved, so Christ did indeed make the ultimate sacrifice. But he was wounded for our transgressions. He was crushed for our iniquities. Isaiah 53:10. Jesus, God in the flesh, is killed. Innocent, yet executed like a murderer. But of course, stories don't end in Act 2. Just because Jesus had his life and death did not mean his story ended there. Because with his death, he broke the curse. 3 days later, he rose from the dead, offering salvation to anyone who would believe in him. The hero succeeded. He saved his true love, his people. And that is why we love stories. Because as author Randy Alcorn says, we crave a story that has the ring of truth. And the three acts in all stories parallel the story of Christ, the divine model and eternal reality which we love. But of course, this story isn't over just yet, because Revelation tells us that Christ is coming back. With his return, he's putting an end to evil and Satan's power forever. Like every good story, there's a wedding. He marries his bride, the church. Peace and happiness are permanently restored. And as the stories we love so much say, we will indeed all live happily ever after. The end.